The bounce is crazy. I like the drum selections that he picked.
Me too, a lot.
You know what I'm saying? I love the drum selections that he picked.
But that you're gonna love hearing.
So today we'll be breaking down my submission for the Kenny Beats beat battle judged by Timbaland and looking at some tips and tricks that I use to add some bounce to my production. First, let's take a look at my final drums and see how they sound. So drum selection is very personal and it helps you define your own sound. What I like to think about with my drum selection is that although there can be a lot of variety and dynamics and different sounds at different timings, you generally want some sort of constants for the listener to hold onto. In this case, you can generally see it as the clap as well as a repeating rhythmic hi-hat. So here the hi-hat loop that I chose has this repeating loud hat and then soft hat played on 16th notes, and that provides a very interesting solid groove that you can then use as a bass to manipulate on your own style. So here I've repurposed a few drum fills to act as accents to accentuate certain parts of my percussion loop. So for the listener of the music, it's essentially tension and then release. So there's spaces where there's something familiar like the hi-hat, as well as accented by these different drum fills. For the clap, I generally like to layer a few sounds together in order to make something unique, as well as something complex. So here I've layered a few tambourine sounds, as well as a snare and a clap in order to make a kind of wider, thicker bass, something for the listener to, again, hold on to as a constant in the song. And finally, I've used some open hats to create some accents on the beat. They're not essentially rhythmic, but they create some diversity within the actual drum loop. So now that we have our drum selection, we can use some tricks to create some bounce. Although this hi-hat sample is quite dynamic and does have its own groove, what we can do is delay the hi-hats so they hit a few milliseconds after the beat. You can do this by using track delay on Ableton or just by clicking and dragging it over. I then like to add strategic cuts within the sample, preferably before loud transients such as claps or kicks. These breaks are not very noticeable in the context of the whole track, but contribute greatly to the overall bounce of the track. Now we can compare the original hi-hat loop with our edited one. A similar trick is with the snare is that you can make these come earlier than the beat. What this will do, contrasting the hi-hat delay, is actually create a drunk feel to your percussion. What you can do now is mess around with the delays of all your different percussion elements to get the vibe that you like personally. Now finally, there are a lot of supporting elements that you can add, including editing your bass line, your melody, and adding a lot of different fills. So let's look at our drum loop we have so far and see how we can edit the other elements of our track. So for my sample chop, you can see that I added a few accents. This can easily be applied with a lead line that you have or even some chords that you have. It's all a matter of personal taste. So looking at the bass line, it's in a frequency range outside of the percussion around the kick, and the kick is constant, it's right on beat. And so what you can do is add small accents to your bass line in order to create more of that groove in that lower frequency range. Since your groove is based on something that's repeating throughout the song, you want to add variety to it. And you can do this by supplementing the track with a lot of different one-shots and fills in order to add a lot of variety to your track. So that's my breakdown of this beat. I hope you can apply a lot of these tips to your own music production. And finally, someone please get me out of this house. Jeez.
We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before, but that you're gonna love hearing.